scream sliced through the house like a wire snapping under tension. Noah Ellis froze at the threshold, raindrops dripping from his coat, pooling silently at his boots. The scent of synthetic lavender mingled sharply with something iron-tinted in the air, and for a second, everything inside him went still. He shut the front door behind him, the lock clicking into place like the final note of a song no one wanted to hear. Upstairs, silence followed the scream, heavy, dense, and far too complete. He set down his keys, peeled off his gloves, and climbed the stairs 2 at a time, heart pounding not with urgency, but with something darker, something primal. In the dim hallway, only the small nightlight from the socket cast a muted yellow glow. He paused outside Alara's room. She was 5. She should have been asleep hours ago. But the door was open slightly, but the quiet was unnatural. Stepped inside slowly, like a soldier entering a cleared building where something didn't add up. Alara lay on her bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. Her arms were wrapped tight around her faded teddy bear. No bruises, no blood. But the way her eyes didn't blink, how her little hands trembled slightly, he knew. "Alara," he said gently, kneeling beside the bed. "Did something happen?" She didn't answer. Her small body didn't move, but her bear shifted as she tightened her grip. Noah didn't press further, not yet. He sat with her until she finally blinked slowly, her eyes drifting shut, not from peace, but exhaustion. When he finally returned to his car, parked just a few blocks down, the storm had passed, but left a sheen of water over everything. He unlocked his phone, intending to scroll through his notes, patterns, timestamps, observations he'd started, recording ever since he got back from deployment, but a new email notification caught his eye. No sender name, just the subject for the real father. No greeting, no attachment, just a line that read, "If you're truly her father, ask Mara about the corner of the closet where she hides every night." Noah read it 3 times. His heart slowed, then raced. He stared at the screen, trying to find a clue in the font, the tone, anything but, found nothing but that haunting, specific sentence. He locked the phone, stepped out of the car, and returned to the house. The front light was still on. Inside, the house had settled back into stillness. Owen, Mara's teenage son from her previous relationship, was likely in his room with his headphones. Mara herself had gone to bed after complaining about being exhausted from managing the household. Noah went straight to Alara's room. She was coloring now, her little hands gripping a crayon like it was the only thing holding her here. He sat beside her, voice low. "Sweetheart," he said, "can I ask you something?" She didn't look up, but her hand froze over the page. "The corner of your closet, is there something about it?" Alara's eyes lifted, just slightly. Wide, reflective, her pupils trembled like ripples on water. She didn't speak, but something in her body, something small and internal, seemed to recoil. That was enough. That night at 12:30, every light in the neighborhood was off. Mrs. Calloway next door had turned in early. Owen had been in his room since 9, playing video games. And Mara had said she'd stay up to finish a show, but the TV had gone dark before 11. Noah left the house just before midnight, loud enough to be heard. He said he had to make a quick run to the pharmacy, something about cough syrup. He drove 3 blocks away, turned the corner, waited 10 minutes, then circled back. His headlights were off as he pulled quietly into the alley behind the house. The back fence still had the loose board he'd fixed last year. The ground floor window in the laundry room, he remembered it had a catch that could be slid open with a blade. It worked. So with practiced ease, he slipped inside. The floor under his boots barely creaked. No light, no flashlight, just muscle. Memory from years in special forces and a year living in this exact house. He moved upstairs, 10 steps, then left. Alara's door was ajar. The hallway nightlight gave him just enough illumination. He heard it before he saw her, a soft, stifled breath, like someone trying not to cry. He stepped inside. The bed was empty. A chair had been pushed slightly out of place. He knelt and peered under the desk. There she was, Alara, knees drawn up, arms wrapped around her stuffed bear, back against the closet wall. Her toy's fabric was torn at the stomach, the seams still split, Her wide eyes reflected the faint light, but they were dry. That scared him more than tears. He knelt beside her, hand hovering before resting on her small shoulder. "It's okay," he whispered. "Whatever it is, you can tell me. I'll never be mad." "I'm here." She didn't speak. But after a moment, she leaned toward him, not a full embrace, but a shift of trust. Her head pressed against his arm, her breath shaky. That was all he needed. He held her for a long time, not rushing her, not asking more, just waiting. Eventually, he helped her back into bed. She didn't resist, just lay down and held the bear to her chest like a shield. He tucked her in gently, then stepped out of the room, pulled out his phone and made the call. "Quinn, I need you now." On the other end, a pause, then a voice. "It's been years since I heard that tone. What is it?" "I have reason to suspect abuse," Noah said, voice low, "and it's personal. It's my kid." Outside, under the overhang by the garage, Noah lit a cigarette but didn't smoke it. He let it burn slowly between his fingers. He hadn't smoked since the service, but tonight felt like the start of a war. In his coat pocket, tucked beside the torn photo of Elira's birth mother, were 3 adhesive bandages sealed in plastic, tiny, almost insignificant, unless you were the one who had to apply them every few days without a good explanation. That was the night Noah Ellis decided the rules were no longer enough. He wouldn't wait for someone else to rescue his daughter from the dark. The next morning, Noah drove through soft rain to a nondescript phone repair shop near the old bus station.
Ow.
There were no signs, no security cameras, just a rusted shutter half pulled over a dusty window and the faint glow of a yellow bulb inside. It was exactly the kind of place Quinn Graves would choose. Inside, Quinn sat at a folding table, sleeves rolled up, dark eyes scanning the room like he never fully came back from deployment. "You look like hell," he said flatly. "You bring what I asked for?" Noah replied, without sitting. Quinn reached into a padded case and laid out 3 items on the table. A USB wall charger with a pinhole microphone, a coin-sized camera, with live transmission capability, and a tiny chip embedded inside the button eye of a teddy bear. "This one's for Alara," Quinn said, tapping the bear's eye. "It records when she hugs it. Body heat activates it. Rechargeable via ambient warmth." Noah nodded, his hands moving automatically as he packed each item into a padded pouch. No questions, no wasted time. The drive home was quiet. The rain had stopped, but a gray fog clung to the sidewalks like a memory that wouldn't let go. By the time he pulled into the driveway, Mara and Alara had just returned from school. "You were out early," Mara commented. "Had some errands?" Noah said evenly, stepping past her into the house. Owen was sprawled on the couch, headphones on, game controller in hand. Nobody looked up. Perfect. He slipped into Ilira's room under the pretense of fixing the broken outlet. He tested the wall socket, then discreetly plugged in the charger with the mic. Next, he placed the teddy bear on her pillow, positioning it so the eye pointed slightly toward the center of the room. He checked the signal on his phone. Live feed. Stably walked out after exactly 8 minutes. That evening passed in an odd rhythm. Mara hummed in the kitchen while making spaghetti, Noah's supposed favorite. Owen reluctantly helped with dishes. Alara sat quietly at the table, chewing slowly, her hands folded in her lap when not using her fork. Noah watched her. Something in the way she kept glancing at the bear like she was checking to make sure it was still watching told him she knew. Maybe not what it did, but that it was with her. Later that night, long after the lights went out, Noah sat in bed, headphones on, watching the download bar complete its crawl across his phone screen. The first audio file was ready. He hit play. The first few seconds were silent, then footsteps, and a sharp voice, Miraz. "Spilled the water again? How many times do I have to tell you, Alara, stupid little girl? Just like her?" Sound of something being slammed a ceramic. Maybe a coupe rang out, followed by a soft gasp. Then silence. Then Owen's voice, quieter, more sinister. "You remember what I told you, right? This is our little secret. If you tell the monster." Under the bed comes out. Noah's hand clenched around the phone. Alara didn't answer in the recording. Not a word. Only a strained breath, held like someone trying to survive a storm without drawing attention. Then the door creaked shut. Noah sat perfectly still for a few moments, the audio still playing in his ears, though it was silent now. He didn't react. Yet, not until the file finished. Then he took off the headphones and dialed Quinn. "You need to hear this," he said. "Now." Quinn's voice on the other end was calm but edged. "Send it." The file transferred. 2 minutes later, Quinn called back. "This'll get a case started, but it's not enough for court. Mara will say she's disciplining her stepdaughter." Owen's voice is vague. No direct threat, and no visual yet. "So what do I do?" Noah asked. "Wait until they break. Her more." Quinn's voice was iron. "You don't rush this. We move now. They'll run. And you'll never find them again." Noah gritted his teeth but nodded. "So what's next?" "Keep playing the game. Eat dinner. Smile. Keep recording." That night, Noah sat with the family and told a joke from his army days. Mara laughed too hard. Owen barely looked up. From his phone, Alara just sat there, quiet. But she glanced up at her father. Not a look of pleading, just waiting. A day later, she spoke in her sleep. Noah was in the hallway, reading a case report, when he heard a soft voice. He stepped in. Alara was twisted in her sheets, murmuring, "Turned off the light. Wouldn't let me breathe. I was scared." Noah didn't wake her. He stood there a long time, then quietly closed the door. The next morning, he installed 2 more devices, a micro camera beneath the dining table, another inside a pen he clipped to his shirt, which he always left on the kitchen counter when he got home. Whenever Mara raised her voice, he recorded her tone, her words, her timing. When Owen walked into Alara's room, Noah logged the minute, the sound of the door, how long it stayed shut. Each night, he encrypted the files and sent them to Quinn, then backed them up to 2 hard drives, one in a locked drawer, the other in a safety deposit box under Quinn's name. No one knew, not Mara, not Owen, not even Alara. Noah had become something else entirely, not just a father, but a sentinel. The quiet shadow gathering proof, building a wall around his child, one recording at a time. One night, he sat in his car after midnight, listening to a 3rd file. Owen's voice again. "The monster doesn't like tattletales, you know. He lives under the bed. He knows who talks." Alara didn't cry. She didn't speak. Just breath short, uneven, terrified. Noah closed his eyes. Enough that afternoon, he took Alara to her grandmother's. "Just a short trip," he told her. "I have to take care of something." Grandma Abigail didn't ask why. She took one look at Noah, then opened her arms to Alara, who walked inside without needing to be told. As the car pulled away, Noah didn't glance back. He couldn't afford it. It's not until it was done. Because last night, in another recording, Owen had whispered, "Grandma will make you stay quiet too." She did it once before. It was time to face the beginning. Noah drove straight to the downtown social services office where his old friend Harper Reyes now worked. She had served with him one's different division. Same war. Harper met him in a small cafe tucked behind a row of medical offices. Eyes scanned him before she even said hello. "I read your message," she said, sliding into the booth. "Who's the name?" "Amara Connors," Noah replied, passing over a folded slip of paper with her full name and date of birth. "LIVED in Arizona before 2007. I need her file if one exists sealed or not." Harper raised an eyebrow. "You sure you want to know?" "I'm already in," Noah said. "Just need to understand what I'm up against." Harper sighed and stood. "Give me 2 hours." She disappeared into the office building nearby. Noah waited in the truck, sipping black coffee and listening to the rain drum lightly on the windshield. Exactly 2 hours later, a secure message pinged his phone, encrypted, verified, from Harper. He tapped it open. The attached file was an excerpt from an old sealed juvenile case. Mara Connors, emotionally and physically abused by her mother, Susan Connors, between ages 9 and 15, diagnosed with major depressive disorder with dissociative symptoms. There had been a suicide attempt at 15, 2 documented school dropouts, a pregnancy at 17 with a father who'd never been named. Records showed that Susan forced Mara to terminate the pregnancy under threat of disownment. No criminal charges had ever stuck. Noah stared at the screen as the truck engine idled, his jaw tightening with every line. He wasn't looking for pity, not even explanation. But what he found, beneath the sharp edges of anger, was something else. A crack. A sliver of recognition. Not forgiveness. Just a shape he hadn't expected. The outline of Mara's pain buried under years of silence. Later that afternoon, Noah drove out to a neighboring town to find Clarissa Dane, a high school classmate of Mira's. She now worked at a local library. And when Noah introduced himself, she didn't seem surprised. "I used to wish someone would come ask me about her," Clarissa said, pouring him a glass of water as they sat near the large windows at the back of the library. "Back in 11th grade, Mara got pregnant. I was there the day her mother found out. It was ugly. Her mom dragged her by the arm, yelling in the middle of the school corridor. She disappeared for 2 months after that. When she came back, she was like a ghost." Clarissa paused. There was no father.
At least not one who stayed.
Met her mom, made her sign some papers. Forced her to say she'd give the baby up, and later changed her mind and had the abortion done secretly. Mara never smiled again. She stopped talking to anyone. Noah left with his hands in his pockets, shoulders hunched against the drizzle. He didn't know whether the knowledge helped or hurt. Maybe both. He wasn't searching for reasons to excuse Mara's actions. But it was impossible not to see the broken lineage. A child beaten into silence, growing up to become the kind of adult who inflicted it. But still, knowing what someone survived didn't undo what they had done. Especially not to Alara. Noah's next stop was unexpected even to himself. He drove straight to Dr. Fielding's private clinic, no appointment. The pediatrician had been Alara's primary doctor for almost 2 years, but their interactions had always been brief, clinical, and oddly restrained. Dr. Fielding looked up as Noah entered. "Didn't expect to see you today," he said, setting aside some paperwork. "You probably knew this was coming," Noah replied, placing his phone on the desk. "I want the truth." Fielding took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "The first time I examined Alara," he said quietly, "I noticed signs. Bruising, elevated cortisol levels, anxiety, subtle but real. But Marashi knew I had a history. I was suspended once for filing a false claim in a custody case. Turns out I was right, but the timing ruined my credibility. She threatened to sue me, said I was trying to destroy her family." Noah's expression didn't shift. "Do you regret not filing the report?" Fielding didn't hesitate. "Every single day," he looked up, his voice resolute now. "I'll testify if you need me. I've been keeping detailed notes just in case." Noah nodded once, then left the clinic in silence. That night, Noah didn't go home. Instead, he parked 2 streets away and waited for the lights to go out at Mara's house. At exactly 9:12 p.m., the porch light flicked off. At 10:30, Owen's window went dark. At midnight, only the hallway nightlight glowed faintly through the curtain. Noah sat in the truck until nearly 1 a.m., his fingers tapping against the steering wheel, mind cycling through the timeline again. Then he started the engine and drove toward another door, one he hadn't knocked on in almost 4 years. Susan. Connors opened the door without surprise, as if she'd been expecting him. Her posture was rigid, her chin tilted upward in defiance. "You're late," she said. "We need to talk," Noah said, stepping inside. The house hadn't changed. Same heavy floral scent. Same pale blue carpet that muffled footsteps. Susan led him to the living room and poured herself a cup of tea. Not him, just herself. "I assume this is about Mara," she said, sipping carefully. "And Alara." Noah sat opposite her, eyes steady. "You think I'm the reason this all happened?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. "You don't?" Noah responded. Susan's expression hardened. "Mara was always fragile. I made her stronger. The world doesn't have space for weakness." "You beat her down so far," Noah said coldly, "that she turned her pain into punishment." Susan didn't flinch. She failed to protect her child? That's not on me. It is on you, Noah said, rising. Because the cycle started with you. She looked up at him, her gaze as hard as the rim of her teacup. And what makes you think you can break it? Noah's voice dropped to a whisper. Because someone has to. He left the house without slamming the door. There's no point in shouting. The real confrontation had already begun. Not with Susan, not even with Mara, but with the ghosts they had handed down, ghosts Alara had never asked for. And now it was Noah's turn to draw the line. Whatever happened next, it would be for her. The rain hadn't let up by the next morning. Cold mist hung over the neighborhood, softening the outlines of the houses, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Noah didn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table long before sunrise, going over the data on his encrypted drive time stomps, audio files, Fielding's statement draft, and the sealed case documents from Harper. Every piece of it mattered now, but none of it felt like enough. Not yet. At exactly 8 a.m., Noah drove Alara to her grandmother Charlotte's house. He hadn't explained much, only said Daddy has to go somewhere important. Opened the door in a thick sweater, her eyes taking in the strain on Noah's face. She didn't ask questions. She simply stepped aside and took Alara's hand. The little girl didn't speak, but before entering, she turned back to look at Noah, her expression unreadable. He gave a small wave, stayed until the door closed behind her, and then drove away. He didn't return to the house that day. Instead, he met Marcus behind the Northside Civic Center. The man wasn't in uniform, just a windbreaker and jeans butt. The badge around his neck gave him weight. They walked to a rented storage unit 2 blocks down, where Marcus opened a metal cabinet containing duplicate drives, copies of all recordings, and the surveillance footage from the teddy bear cam. It's getting tight, Marcus said, scanning through the files. This is enough to build a case. Audio, doctor's statement, behavioral logs, pattern evidence. It's not just a red flag, it's a damn fire. Noah nodded. Face hard. So what's the move? Marcus took out a thick envelope. Emergency child welfare check. Statute 42-6. We'll present this tomorrow morning. Uniformed officers, CPS, everything by the book, no mistakes. Noah took the envelope. His fingers didn't tremble, but his jaw locked. You're sure this'll stick? It'll hold long enough to pull her out of there, Marcus said. Long enough to protect Alara. After that, court takes over. This time the court's not walking in blind. That night, Noah sat alone in his truck outside his own house, parked beneath the heavy limbs of a dying oak. His room light was off, and so was the hallway. From where he sat, he could see into the kitchen. Mara was moving around, slicing something. Owen was in the living room with his headphones on, laughing at something on his phone. No one looked out the window. No one noticed that the porch light had been rewired, its new casing holding a hidden lens. Angled just enough to see the front steps. Noah didn't go in. He waited until the house darkened, then drove away. At sunrise the next day, just as the sky turned from gray to silver, Noah stood behind the CPS agent beside Marcus and 2 uniformed officers. They rang the bell. 3 measured knocks. Inside, movement. Footsteps. The door opened. Owen's face appeared first, confusion sweeping over his lazy expression. Can I help? Good morning," said the CPS officer, holding up a printed order. "We have a verified emergency child welfare check. Please step aside. Everyone in the household is required to cooperate." Owen stepped back, his gaze flicking to the uniforms. Mara entered from the kitchen, face pale. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, voice sharp. The officer remained calm. "We've received credible, documented evidence of sustained emotional and physical abuse of a minor residing at this address. We're executing our duty under state statute." Owen turned toward Mara. "What the hell is going on?" But before she could answer, one of the officers approached Owen. "Sir, step away from the child." "What?" Owen's voice cracked. "I didn't do anything." He bolted toward the back of the house, but didn't get far. This was already moving, catching Owen before he reached the laundry door. The cuff snapped on quick and quiet. Mara shrieked. "He's just a kid. You're insane. This is my child. You have no right." But no one raised their voice in return. The CPS agent moved toward Ilara, who was sitting at the kitchen table holding the stuffed bear. "Ilara, sweetheart," the agent said gently, kneeling down. "My name is Nina. You're going to come with me now, okay? You're safe. We're going to take care of you." Ilara didn't move at first. Her fingers clutched the bear tighter. Her eyes scanned the room, then locked onto Noah, who had stepped just inside the door. She didn't speak, but her stare was direct, unblinking. Noah knelt down beside her. "It's all right, kiddo," he said softly. "I'm here. Remember what we talked about, right? That the door would stay open?" She gave the smallest nod. Then, slowly, she reached for his shirt with one hand and clung to it. She didn't cry, she didn't speak. Shh. But she leaned just slightly into his shoulder. And that was enough. Marcus watched in silence as the agents moved around the room. Mara was restrained, sitting in the corner, her hands shaking. "You did this?" she hissed at Noah. "You did this?" Noah looked at her, not with anger, just a quiet, cold kind of distance. "I did it for Ilara," he replied. "Not for revenge, not to hurt you, just to break the chain." Mara blinked fast, as if something in her cracked right there, but she didn't say another word. By noon, the house was nearly empty. Owen was taken away in a separate car. Mara was interviewed on site before being escorted for further questioning. Susan, who had arrived just before the officers left, was not allowed entry. She stood outside shouting at the retreating vehicles, but no one paid her any mind. Back at Charlotte's, Lara sat on the porch steps with her grandmother while Noah spoke with the social worker inside. It would be a process, she told him. Temporary placement, custody reviews, therapy, maybe even supervised visitation if a court allowed it. But for now, Lara was with him. That night, as Noah helped Ilara brush her teeth, she looked at him through the mirror, her small face calm but curious. "Are we going somewhere?" she asked. Noah wiped his hands on a towel, then knelt to her level. "No," he said. "We're not running. We're staying." Ilara nodded once. Then she walked to her room, her real room. Noanne crawled into bed. The teddy bear rested beside her. As Noah pulled the blanket up, she looked at him and whispered, "Can you stay till I fall asleep?" "Stay the whole night," he said, "even if you don't ask." Ilara closed her eyes. No flinching, no tension in her shoulders, no locked doors. The days that followed unfolded in a quiet rhythm, not normal yet, but steady. Noah didn't talk much. Neither did Ilara, and that was fine. There was no pressure to say more than needed. In the mornings, he got her ready for school. He packed. Her lunch himself, cut the crust off the bread the way she liked, even though no one had told him. In the afternoons, they played small games, word puzzles, memory cards, coloring. Sometimes they just sat quietly in the living room, the TV on, low but neither watching. Ilara no longer flinched when someone opened a door too quickly. She still didn't speak much, but her breathing was different. Less guarded, more steady. Charlotte was a steady presence in the background, gentle, never intrusive. She kept the kitchen warm, the cabinets stocked with Ilara's favorite snacks, and her voice always soft enough to feel like a cushion instead of a command. Ilara took to her easily, almost instinctively. It made Noah feel something he couldn't quite name, a mix of gratitude and guilt. At night, when Ilara was asleep, Noah stayed up. Not because he was afraid, because he was listening, watching, waiting for the feeling of peace to become real. One evening, after reading her a story about a girl and a silent forest creature, Noah was tucking Ilara in when she tugged his sleeve. "You're staying, right?" she asked, her voice small but not afraid. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "Even if you're quiet, even if you're sad. I'm staying." She nodded and, for the first time, pulled the blanket up herself. Okay, tiny act but powerful. Noah noticed the smile. It wasn't wide, but it was hers. Flicker of light that hadn't been there before. The next morning, Ilara came running into the kitchen holding a drawing. She didn't say anything, just climbed onto a chair, grabbed a piece of tape from the drawer, and pressed the picture onto the fridge. Noah, in the middle of fixing the sink, dried his hands and walked over. He studied the image in silence. 2 figures stood in the rain, one tall in a coat, one small with an umbrella. Above them, in uneven handwriting, was a single word: home. The H was backward. The lines were shaky, but it was there. Noah felt his throat tighten. Alara had drawn dozens of houses in the past few days. But this was the first one with people, and the first one with that word. She hadn't needed to ask how to spell it, hadn't copied it from anywhere. She knew. Later that day, after dropping Alara off at school, Noah received a brown envelope at his temporary mailing address. No return address, but the stamp told him where it had come from: North County Psychological Recovery Center. Inside was a 3-page letter. The handwriting was familiar, shaky but deliberate. Diane Lambert. She hadn't begged. She hadn't denied. The letter was quiet, reflective, somehow too composed for someone in her position. Noah read it once, then folded it and placed it in the drawer beside his bed. Every night since, he opened the drawer not to read it again, but to check that it was still there, like some part of him couldn't throw it away, couldn't destroy it, but couldn't forgive it either. In the letter, Diane wrote, "If there's another life, all I hope is that you'll never call anyone mother except your birth mother. But if you could call me that once, just once, I would walk the rest of this road trying to earn it." She described her therapy group, sleepless nights. The dreams where Alara stood in the corner of the room silently holding the teddy bear watching. Noah didn't respond. He didn't tell Alara about the letter. Dr. Lorraine had told him there was no rush, that children don't need the whole truth at once, just the pieces they're ready to carry. Someday, she had said, she asked, and when she does, don't lie. Don't let your anger speak for you. Just be honest and be kind. He wasn't sure if he'd know how. A week later, on a cold Saturday morning, Noah was out in the garage fixing the car. The air was crisp, the radio playing some quiet jazz, and the world outside felt distant. Inside, Alara was drawing on her tablet. Lately, her pictures had changed. No more dark rooms, no more corners. Just houses with open doors, trees, apples, swings close to noon. The gate buzzer rang. Alara was faster than Noah. She reached the gate first, standing with her hands on her hips. Ponytail slightly crooked, cheeks pink from the cold. When the gate swung open and Noah appeared, she huffed. "You're 5 minutes late." Noah laughed a soft, tired laugh that still managed to feel new. Got caught at a red light. She took his hand without another word and led him inside. That evening, after dinner, Alara added a new drawing to the wall beside the refrigerator. It showed a house with all the lights on. The door was wide open. In the yard stood 2 figures, one tall, one small. There was an apple tree and a stone bench. And on the bench, drawn in faint gray, was a letter. Noah didn't ask what it meant, but as he turned back to the kitchen sink, Alara said quietly, "I think if someone went the wrong way for a while, but wanted to come back, then the door should still be open." Noah paused, set the dish towel down. He turned to her. "You're right," he said. "But not every door has to open right away. Some doors take time. Some need to be knocked on gently." Alara nodded. Then she skipped off to her room, her small feet tapping along the wooden floor. Just before disappearing down the hallway, she turned. "Dad." "Yeah?" "Don't lock the door, okay?" "Never," Noah said. "The door's always open." The leaves had started to fall in slow spirals down the driveway when Noah received another envelope. This one wasn't from Diane. It came from a law office downtown, forwarded by Child Protective Services. Inside was a hearing date: family court. Set for early December, it would decide permanent guardianship. Noah sat on the porch steps after reading it, elbows on his knees, the paper folded and refolded in his hands. He didn't tell Alara, not yet. She was on the lawn with a pile of fallen leaves, jumping in with an abandon that made her giggle each time. Her laughter was becoming familiar again, not frequent, but when it came, it was real. Charlotte stepped outside holding 2 mugs. She handed one to Noah and sat beside him. "You look like a man with 20 things in his head and only 2 hands to catch them." He offered her a quiet half-smile. "It's court papers. Guardianship hearing's been set." She sipped from her mug. "You scared?" "Not scared," he said after a pause. "I'm just wondering if everything I've done will be enough." Charlotte looked at him, steady. "She smiles at you in her sleep. It's more than enough." Noah didn't sleep much the week leading up to the hearing. He reviewed every document Marcus had helped compile. His photos, reports, medical evaluations, recordings. He had a folder so thick it barely closed. But more than the evidence, he thought about the little things. The way Alara whispered his name when she was half asleep. The way she paused after he read her a bedtime story, like she wanted to say something but wasn't sure how. Trust didn't arrive with grand gestures. It showed up in crumbs, slowly. Over time, Dr. Lorraine submitted her affidavit a day before the hearing. It described Ilara's progress in therapy, reduced night terrors, improved emotional regulation, consistent engagement and nonverbal expression through art. She has begun to develop a healthy attachment, the report stated, with the one adult who has shown unwavering presence. On the morning of the hearing, the city was gray and cold. Noah wore a collared shirt for the first time in years. Ilara held his hand in the hallway outside the courtroom, unusually quiet. She didn't ask questions.
Yes.
She just leaned into his side, her face resting just below his elbow. The waiting room clock ticked loud in the silence. Inside, the courtroom was modest. A judge with round glasses and a slow, steady tone. No audience. It's just a social worker, a lawyer, a therapist, and the echo of what they were all carrying. Noah spoke only when asked. His answers were measured, calm. When the prosecutor asked him what he believed Ilara needed, he didn't use rehearsed lines. She needs to know that the person who's with her today will still be there tomorrow, no matter what. Then the judge looked at Ilara. "Would you like to say anything, sweetheart?" Ilara clutched the small teddy bear on her lap, the one with the recording device no one had told her about. She shook her head. "That's all right," the judge said gently. "You don't have to speak. You're safe." And then it was done. The decision didn't come with a gavel, bang, or applause. Just the quiet reading of a judgment. Full and permanent guardianship granted to Noah Witt, legal father, as they left the courthouse. Ilara asked softly, "Can we go get pancakes?" He laughed, the tension breaking all at once. "We can get 2 plates just for you," she smiled, gripping his hand tighter. That afternoon, Noah and Ilara stopped at a small diner, with checkered floors and windows fogged from the cold. She ate all the strawberries off his plate before touching her own food. He didn't mind. They split a milkshake. For a moment it felt like they were just any father and daughter out for lunch. That night, when Ilara fell asleep curled up in the blanket Noah had brought back from his army days, he sat at the foot of the bed for a long time. The house was silent. Charlotte had turned in early. The only sound was the occasional creak of the floor or the wind brushing against the windows. Noah reached into the drawer beside his bed. The letter from Diane was still there. He opened it and read it again, not looking for anything, just ... Feeling, "If you could call me mother just once." He closed the letter and placed it back. Then he reached for his phone. After a pause, he typed one message to Marcus. "It's done. I've got her." "For real this time," Marcus replied an hour later. "She's lucky, but not as lucky as you." The days moved forward like pages in a quiet book. Noah learned to braid Ilara's hair from a video tutorial. He signed her up for weekend art classes. He made friends with a girl named Raya, and for the first time, asked if she could go to a birthday party. When she came home from school with a certificate that said Best Listener, she gave it to him without explanation. He taped it to the fridge. Just beneath the picture of the 2 of them in the rain, one evening, while folding laundry, Noah found a slip of paper in Ilara's backpack. A journal entry from class. It had one sentence, scrawled in her uneven handwriting. "My dad is not like a hero. He's better. He came back." Noah folded the paper and put it in his wallet. It's right behind his driver's license. the war he'd fought. In wasn't overseas. It was in a small house with locked closets and quiet pain. He hadn't won with fists or weapons, but with patience and truth. And showing up when it counted, he didn't know what the next chapter would bring. But for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of turning the page. The winter sunlight spilled through the curtains in strips of pale gold as Alara sat cross-legged on the living room floor, focused on her crayons. Noah was at the table, going over bills with a calculator and pen, but his eyes kept drifting toward her, watching the calm on her face, the way her tongue peeked slightly from the side of her mouth as she worked. She was drawing trees again, but not bare ones like in the past. These trees had leaves, big green leaves. And in one corner of the page, there was a sun. Later, he asked her what the picture was. "It's the park," she replied matter-of-factly. "When we went and fed the birds. Remember?" He did. He remembered how she'd clutched the bag of birdseed tightly at first, opened her hand to scatter it like she'd been doing it forever. He remembered her laughing when a small sparrow landed too close and fluttered off again. "You didn't draw the bench," he said, teasing. "I forgot," she admitted, then added, "Next time I will." There was a rhythm forming between them. Not the loud kind, but one that pulsed softly in the background of each day, like brushing teeth side by side. Like watching cartoons together on Saturday mornings with mismatched socks. Like Alara calling for him, not with fear, but with the easy confidence of knowing he'd answer. But Noah hadn't forgotten about the letter. Diane's words haunted him. It's not because they demanded forgiveness, but because they didn't. She hadn't asked for redemption. She'd only confessed, quietly. From behind walls that couldn't be undone, Noah brought it up during Alara's next therapy session. It's not in front of her, but afterward, when she was finishing a drawing with Lorraine. He asked the question that had been sitting inside him for weeks. Should I give her the letter? Not now, but someday? Lorraine studied him for a moment before answering. One day, Alara may need to know the full truth. But truth isn't a door you open and walk away from. If you give her that letter, you stay. You guide her through it. You answer her questions, even the hard ones. Noah nodded. He didn't say anything else, but he knew what she meant. The past wasn't just Diane's. It would always be part of Alara's too. It's not defining, but real. And when she was ready to ask, he'd be there. One evening, weeks later, Alara climbed up beside him on the couch and pulled out a sheet of paper from her backpack. "We're making family trees in school," she said. "I have to bring photos." Noah felt a quiet weight settle on him. "You want to include Diane?" Alara shrugged. "Do I have to?" "No," he said gently. "You include whoever you feel is family." She stared at the blank tree sketched by her teacher. "Then I want it to be you and Grandma Charlotte. And Marcus too." "Marcus?" Noah raised an eyebrow. "He helped," she said. "He helped us get safe. That counts, right?" Noah smiled. "It counts." Together, they printed out photos from his phone. A picture of Charlotte laughing while baking, one of Marcus with sunglasses, looking way too serious, and one Noah didn't know she had taken by her, apparently, while he was asleep in the armchair with a book on his chest. "You snore," she whispered with a grin. He feigned shock. "That's classified information." As she glued each photo onto the paper, Noah watched her hands. They weren't trembling anymore. Her lines were still a bit uneven, but she pressed the glue stick down with confidence. When she was done, she held up the paper. Her family tree wasn't neat, didn't follow the traditional model with branches and bloodlines. But it was full, rooted in people who had stayed. That same week, Charlotte surprised them both by pulling down an old suitcase from the attic. "This," she said, placing it on the floor, "was your mom's. She packed it the night she left. For college, never even opened it again." Alara approached slowly, cautious. "It's not scary?" "No, sweetheart," Charlotte said. "Just memories." Inside were old notebooks, a faded scarf, a cracked music player, and a small stuffed dolphin with frayed stitching. Alara picked it up gently. Noah didn't say anything, but he saw her face shift, not with fear, but curiosity. "Can I keep it?" she asked. "Of course," Charlotte replied. Later that night, Noah peeked into her room. The dolphin was on the pillow beside her, right next to the teddy bear. Ilara was asleep, one arm draped over both. A bridge was forming, not to erase pain, but to acknowledge it without letting it define her. That Friday, they went back to the park. Lara wore a red scarf that trailed in the wind. Noah carried a thermos of cocoa and a small bag of sunflower seeds. Same bench? She asked. Same bench. They sat quietly as the birds gathered. This time, Ilara didn't flinch when one came too close. She just smiled, eyes steady, hand open. After a while, she turned to him. I think I'm going to write a story. Oh, he said, surprised. Yeah, she nodded. It'll be about a girl and her dad who fought monsters. But the monsters weren't real. They were just big shadows. And how do they fight them? She looked thoughtful. By not being afraid of the dark anymore. Noah didn't speak. But something deep in his chest shifted. The past might still echo, but the present had begun to sing its own song. The last of the autumn leaves fell like paper cutouts as Noah closed the lid of his laptop. Rain trickled lightly against the window, a calm rhythm that matched the mood inside the house. Ilara was on the floor, legs stretched out, humming softly. While assembling a small jigsaw puzzle, she didn't ask for help this time. She rarely did now. Her hands moved with focus, her brow furrowed the same way Noah's used to get when handling surveillance maps years ago. He watched her, realizing how far she had come. No more flinching when the door creaked. No more hiding under the bed. The healing hadn't erased the past, it had simply taught her that she could live with it and still find peace. That night, while brushing her teeth, Ilara paused mid-motion. She stared at herself in the mirror and then looked at Noah standing behind her. Do you think people who did something really bad can ever become good again? She asked. Noah met her gaze in the reflection, careful not to move too fast. It's a big question, he said. Why are you thinking about that? She shrugged, looking down at the sink, just wondering. He knelt beside her so they were at eye level. I think people can change. But change doesn't undo hurt, doesn't erase what happened, just means they might try hard or not. To cause hurt again? Ilara nodded slowly. She didn't say more, but her silence wasn't heavy. It was reflective. Later, after she'd gone to sleep, Noah sat at the kitchen table with Diane's letter spread out in front of him again. His fingers hovered over it, not to open, just to feel the paper's edge. For weeks, he hadn't dared mention it to Ilara, but now he wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to ask questions in her own way. The next morning, Ilara slipped a paper under his door, a note in her uneven writing. Can we talk about my mom sometime? He folded it carefully and tucked it into his wallet. Then he went to her room, knocked, and waited. When she said, "Come in," he found her sitting cross-legged on her bed, hugging. The dolphin and teddy bear like guardians. I don't know everything, Noah began, but I can tell you what I do know. I'll be honest, even if it's hard. Ilara nodded. Okay. They talked for over an hour. Noah explained that Diane had grown up in a difficult home, that she had struggled with things that no child should ever face, that she hadn't always known how to be kind or safe. He didn't defend her, but he didn't demonize her either. She wrote you a letter, he said softly. I've had it for a while. I didn't want to give it to you. Too soon? You can read it or not. You can ask questions or not. It's your choice. Ilara thought for a long time before answering. Maybe not now, but one day. I think I want to be ready first. He smiled gently.
It's okay. I'll wait for you.
Sunday, they went to visit Grandma Charlotte again. Ilara ran up the porch steps ahead of him, her hair loose and bouncing with each step. Charlotte met her at the door with a big hug and a warm blanket already draped over her shoulders. They sat in the garden later that afternoon, sipping hot cocoa while Ilara played with leaves. Charlotte leaned over and whispered, "She's starting to look more like herself again." Noah nodded. She's becoming who she was always supposed to be. That evening, as they drove home, Ilara asked, "Do you think Grandma Diane dreams about me?" Noah didn't lie. Probably. "I think she sees you in her dreams. I think maybe that's how she's starting to understand what she lost." Can dreams change people?" she asked. "I think they can," he said. "Just like stories can. Just like love can." Ilara looked out the window, watching the soft glow of passing streetlights. Then she whispered, "Maybe I'll write her a letter." One day, too. Noah smiled but didn't push it. Healing, he'd learned, isn't something you rush. One day at therapy, Ilara surprised everyone. She brought in a notebook titled The Monster Book, but inside were no monsters, only pages of small drawings. Her old closet, cracked teacup, a hallway shadow. Each page was labeled, "Before." Then halfway through, the drawings changed. A hand reaching into the closet, lit lamp on the table, her dad reading a book. These were labeled, "Now." Ah! Lorraine flipped slowly through the notebook, her fingers trembling. "This is the bravest thing I've seen in a long time," she said. Noah waited until they got home before asking, "Why did you make it, Ilara?" "Looked up, because I didn't want to forget. But I also didn't want the before to win." That night, he tucked her in and left the door slightly ajar, just the way she liked it. He stood in the hallway, watching the lights spill across the wooden floor, thinking how far they'd come. Not all the way. Not yet. But far enough to say, "We made it this far, together." And tomorrow, they'd walk another step. Winter crept in quietly that year. Trees outside were bare. And the wind had a certain sharpness that turned every walk to school into a race between warmth and breath. But inside the house, warmth held its ground, not just the kind from heaters and blankets, but the kind built slowly, day after day. Between two people learning how to trust each other again. One Sunday morning, Ilara stood in the hallway with a shoebox in her hands. She didn't say anything at first. Noah looked up from the couch, setting his coffee aside. "Want me to see what's in it?" he asked gently. She nodded and walked over. Inside the box were old drawings, a broken hair clip, the fabric tag from her teddy bear, and a small notebook. One she used to write in when she couldn't talk to anyone. "I want to throw it away," she whispered. "But not yet. Maybe one more time I need to look." Noah didn't open it. He simply nodded. "Okay, it's yours. You decide when." That same day, Noah received a call from the district attorney's office. The case had officially closed. Diane was attending therapy regularly from within the facility. Ricky had been released on probation but wasn't allowed near minors or the family. And Susan, well, Susan had moved states, perhaps to start over or to escape the weight of her own shadow. It should have felt like closure. But no one knew. Closure didn't arrive like a slammed door. It crept in quietly, when you weren't looking, often disguised as something mundane like Ilara laughing over spilled juice, or the sound of her footsteps not running, but walking. Snowy evening, while decorating the small tree they'd placed near the living room window, Ilara found a red ornament with a crack down the side. She held it in her palm, staring. "Can we still use this one?" she asked. Noah glanced at it. "You want even cracked things can shine when the lights hit right." She smiled and placed it near the middle of the tree. A week later, as the holiday break began, Ilara brought him another drawing. It was different this time, less about the past, more about dreams. In the center was a big open field under a night sky. A house stood far away in the distance, its windows glowing golden. In the sky, stars formed letters that spelled out, "One day." "What's this one mean?" Noah asked. She leaned against him. "It means I think things will be okay. Not perfect, but okay." Noah didn't realize he was tearing up until she gently placed her hand over his. The next morning, Ilara found the letter Diane had written on the kitchen table, beside a folded piece of paper with her name on it in Noah's handwriting. Inside, it said only, "When you're ready, not before, I'd ever, unless you want to." She didn't read Diane's letter that day, but she kept it. She asked for a boxer. Nicer when Anne tucked the letter away with her other keepsakes. Noah watched from the hallway as she closed the lid with care, like someone honoring the past without being ruled by it. That evening, they drove to Grandma Charlotte's for dinner. Ilara had a new scarf, hand-knitted by Charlotte. wrapped tightly around her neck. At dinner, she told Charlotte a joke she'd heard at school. She messed up the punchline, but everyone laughed anyway. Noah sat quietly afterward, helping Charlotte wash dishes while Alara played with the cat by the fireplace. She doesn't carry it on her shoulders anymore, Charlotte said, scrubbing. A plate. Not the way she used to. No, Noah agreed, but she remembers. Charlotte nodded. That's okay. Remembering's not the enemy. That night, after they got home, Alara asked if she could sleep in Noah's room just once. Like before, but not because I'm scared. He smiled and set out the spare blanket. She didn't use it, just curled up beside him, whispering, I don't want to have dreams tonight, but if I do, can you stay until they pass? Always, he said. She fell asleep minutes later. Noah lay awake a while longer, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing. It was soft, steady, unafraid. The next morning she went back to her own room without being asked. At breakfast, she poured cereal for both of them. When Noah offered to do it instead, she waved him off with mock seriousness. I'm not a baby, you know. No, he said. You're not. That afternoon, Noah found himself standing in front of a locked drawer in his study. It held things from the past. Photos, his old army medals, even a copy of the first CPS report. He pulled it open slowly, sifting through the contents. Then he took out the first surveillance photo, the one where Alara was peeking out from the Y closet, only half of her visible in the frame. He stared at it for a long time, then slid it back in, closed the drawer, and locked it again. Not because he wanted to forget, but because some things didn't need to live out in the open anymore. Later that night, Alara taped a small card to her wall next to the drawing she'd titled Now. It had a single sentence in her handwriting. You don't have to forget the old monsters to be safe from them. She didn't tell Noah she'd written it. When he saw it the next morning, he stood in front of it for a long while before quietly whispering, She's going to be okay. And she was. Not because nothing bad had ever happened, but because she knew now she had a voice, she had a home, and the door would always stay open. The sky outside was pale and clear, winter's edge giving way to the early signs of spring. Birds had begun returning to the branches near the house, and each morning Noah noticed how Alara would pause by the window, watching them hop from limb to limb. Her fingers often twitched slightly like she was drawing them in her mind. Even before touching a pencil, it had been nearly 6 months since the trial. The days had passed slowly at first, but lately, time had begun to move with the rhythm of something whole again, not fixed, not perfect, but whole. There were no more midnight recordings, no whispered fears. The camera Noah had once hidden under the dining table had been taken down and put away. He didn't need to watch anymore. He was there. Alara had returned to regular school. She'd even joined the art club. Her teacher, Ms. Perry, called one evening just to say that Alara had made a drawing the class voted to hang in the hallway. It was a picture of a house with giant open doors, surrounded by trees, each branch filled with birds. No signature, no title, just a corner stamp that read, Drawn by someone learning to fly again. Noah kept a photo of it on his phone. One Saturday morning, as he made pancakes in the kitchen, Alara walked in holding the letter. Diane's letter. She didn't say anything, just placed it on the table and pulled out a chair.
Ow.
Noah turned off the stove and sat down beside her. I want to read it, she said, voice steady. But I want you to be here. You sure? She nodded. So they read it together, line by line. Diane's handwriting curved and careful. She didn't justify. She didn't beg. She spoke of her own pain, of the silence that hardened her, of the child she had once been, and the one she couldn't protect because she never knew how. She wrote about the way Alara used to flinch, how now she dreamed that Alara stood strong and still. Alara read every word. When she reached the end, she folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope. I don't hate her, she said after a while. Noah didn't speak. I don't want to see her, she added. But I don't hate her. It's okay. Noah said, You don't have to do either. Alara stood and walked to the living room. She picked up her sketch pad and began to draw again this time. Not a house, or a bird, or a storm. Just soft lines. Gentle ones. Noah didn't ask what it was. He just watched. That afternoon, they visited Grandma Charlotte. She had baked her cinnamon apple pie, the one Alara secretly pretended not to like, but always finished a second slice of. They laughed. They played cards. Charlotte showed Alara an old album with baby photos of Noah one, where he had no front teeth and wore shoes 2 sizes too big. Alara laughed so hard she snorted. "I want to stay here for the weekend," she said as they cleaned up the dishes. Just one night, Noah raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "Yeah, I want to try." That night, the house felt quiet in a different way. Not lonely, just peaceful. Noah stood in the doorway of Alara's empty room for a while, then walked back to the kitchen, pulled open the fridge, and smiled at the drawings taped there. The one labeled home, the one with the door open. He made a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the streetlights blink on. A faint memory came to him of the night he first returned, stepping through the door with no map. Only the weight of guilt and hope. He remembered how Alara had once spoken in her sleep, how she'd whispered, "Don't lock the door." And now, she was the one walking in and out of it freely. The next morning, when he returned to pick her up, she came running out with a new drawing in hand. "It's us," she said. Noah took the page. The two of them were walking on a winding path, trees on either side, a few flowers blooming near the edges. And in the sky, just one phrase written in crooked but confident letters were going. "Going where?" Noah asked. Alara shrugged. "Wherever the path goes." He laughed, held her hand, and they started back home. That spring, Alara planted a small garden with Charlotte's help, tomatoes, basil, and sunflowers. She named the tallest sunflower Sentry. "Because it watches everything," she explained, and each night, Noah watered it after she fell asleep just in case she forgot. One evening, months later, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky gold, Alara pulled an old photograph from her drawer, the torn one, the one that had once been ripped in anger. She'd taped it back together now, but only partially, enough to show Diane holding baby Alara smiling with uncertain eyes. The rest remained blank. She placed it inside her journal, not at the front or the back, but the middle. Then closed the cover. Noah watched from the hallway, didn't say anything. At dinner that night, Alara said, "I think the past can still live with us, even if it doesn't eat at the same table." Noah nodded slowly. "It just needs to knock first." They smiled, ate, cleaned up together. And afterward, Alara taped one more drawing to the fridge this time, of a wide-open door with footprints leading away from it, and others returning. Noah looked at it for a long moment. "You still call this one home?" he asked. Alara paused. "No," he turned to her. "I call it ours now," she said. And she was right. It wasn't just a place anymore. It was a promise and the door. The door would always stay open.